What did he say to you, father to daughter, about that?
Well, he recognizes it was crude language. He was embarrassed that he had said those things, and he apologized. This is, that's not language consistent with any conversation I've ever had with him, certainly, or any conversation that I've overheard.
A carefully calculated answer, polished down to every syllable. That was Ivanka Trump's reaction when forced to confront the words of her own father. A desperate attempt to clean up the PR mess after the most horrifying comments were laid bare. But that staged apology can't hide the raw truth.
Maybe I would date her if she weren't my daughter.
These words were not a slip of the tongue. They were the most genuine words from the sitting president of the United States, broadcast for years on the Howard Stern Show, a stage where Donald Trump rehearsed for the biggest role of his life. For years, Trump was a goldmine for Howard Stern, an indispensable guest because of the absolute chaos he brought. He was an open book, willing to say anything, do anything to grab attention. The combination of a massive ego and a total lack of filter turned him into a magnet for audiences. Stern knew it well.
I would have Donald Trump on, and I say it in the book, he was maybe one of the best top 5 guests of all time.
This brilliance didn't come from intelligence or wit. It came from his willingness to cross every line of decency, turning every appearance into a ridiculous performance. Stern's studio became Trump's laboratory. Here he tested messages, sharpened the image of a tough guy unafraid of any moral standard, and, most importantly, normalized behaviors that any ordinary person would find revolting. At the center of this performance was how he treated women. To him, they weren't people. They were numbers, objects to be judged and bragged about. He boasted about having the most beautiful women, turning conquest into a business achievement. Women were ranked on a scale from 1 to 10, a stunt performed for millions of listeners.
What is it at 35, Howard? It's called checkout time.
This view wasn't limited to unknown women. Even a global icon like Angelina Jolie couldn't escape his crude ranking system.
I go, Donald, Angelina Jolie, she's one of the most beautiful actresses in the world. She's a 6. Now who says that?
Who would say such a thing? A man building a brand on excess. Someone who understands that in the world of entertainment and later politics, outrage is just as valuable as admiration. But this pattern goes far beyond words. It turned into action. Trump had no hesitation bragging about barging into the dressing rooms of beauty pageants, where young women were in the middle of changing clothes.
And I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant, and therefore I'm inspecting it. I'm inspecting. I want to make sure that everything is good. Yeah, the dress. Is everyone okay? They're standing there with no clothes. Is everybody okay? And you see these incredible looking women. And so I sort of get away with it.
He didn't just admit to that behavior. He laughed about it, turning the violation of privacy into a privilege of power. All of these actions set a deeply alarming stage for the most disturbing part of Trump's act, his public obsession with his own daughter, Ivanka. When Howard Stern asked point blank if Ivanka had undergone plastic surgery, most fathers would shut that question down immediately. Not Trump. He saw it as another opportunity to market his product.
In response, Donald said, "No, she didn't get them. She's actually always been very voluptuous. She's tall, she's almost 6 feet tall, and she's an amazing beauty."
He described his daughter's body with the cold detachment of a beauty pageant judge. The pride of a father was gone, replaced by the sales pitch of a salesman. The discomfort peaked when Stern called Ivanka a piece of meat on air. Trump didn't object. He nodded in agreement.
Can I say this? A piece? Yeah.
These moments weren't just bad jokes. They were a reveal of the true nature of a man who saw every relationship, even with his own daughter, as a transaction. Ivanka wasn't just his daughter. She was a brand asset, a showcase for his genetics and his so-called creative power. Her polished, perfect image was a crucial part of the Trump empire. That's why when these tapes surfaced, they didn't just threaten Trump's reputation, they threatened the Ivanka brand itself. Ivanka's so-called losing her composure wasn't a public meltdown. It was a visible crack in her perfect facade. Her scripted response about her father being embarrassed and apologizing was a damage control performance. But it was also a tacit admission that those words were indefensible.
The Trump campaign directed us to Ivanka's brand manager, and a source there tells us it wasn't Ivanka who personally liked the item. It was, quote, a simple mistake by a staff member.
The PR machine is always running, always cleaning up, always protecting the brand. Ivanka is trapped, forced to walk a fragile line between the loyalty of a daughter and the disgust of any woman. She must publicly defend the man who turned her into the subject of some of the most vile comments, all for the greater good of the family empire. Trump's entire later political career was built on a foundation tested on the Stern Show: the disregard for rules, the willingness to say the unsayable, and the ability to turn outrage into political power. Many people, including Stern himself, initially believed that running for president was just another stunt.
Said, pretend like you're running for president and you'll sell a lot of books. And he did it and it worked.
But the joke became reality. The wholesale dealer of chaos set his sights on the White House, and the Americans who voted for him seemed not to notice, or not to care, that they were merely supporting actors in his reality show. Trump even tried to pull Stern into his political theater, begging for an endorsement he would never receive.
So Donald said, would you please come to the Republican convention and speak on my behalf? And I went, oh my.
Stern's refusal was a rare moment of clarity in the storm. It showed that even the king of shock radio had his limits. And as always, when Trump was rejected, he turned to attack Stern. Anyone who wasn't loyal instantly became the enemy.
Then he went woke.
Yeah.
And since he's gone woke, his ratings have gone down the tubes, and he sort of went anti-Trump for a couple of reasons.
He could not accept that someone might have a moral compass different from his own. In Trump's world, you are either an ally or a loser. His desperation to seek validation from media figures shows that he values image over substance.
So anyway, he was calling me all through the campaign. I don't mean on the air, off the air.
For advice?
The consequences for the American people are crystal clear. They elected a president whose views on half the population were shaped by shallow judgments and derogatory remarks. A president whose concept of respect, by his own implication, lies somewhere between decency and trash.
You treat women with respect.
I can't say that either.
All right, good. All right. Somewhere in between.
I do. I treat women with great respect.
Treat women somewhere in between respect and do.
They handed the nuclear codes to a man who, according to those who know him, has serious psychological issues. A man whose narcissism outweighs any capacity for empathy.
You know, his level of narcissism is so strong. He has trouble with empathy. We know that. And I wish he'd go into psychotherapy. I'd be so proud of him if he did.
The Howard Stern tapes are no longer just old jokes. They are evidence, a transcript of the character of a man who reshaped American politics. They show a man who saw the presidency not as a sacred responsibility, but as the ultimate prop in the reality show of his life. The Ivanka scandal was not a one-off incident. It was the culmination of a worldview built and openly marketed for decades. It was the clearest display of a man who saw no boundary between father and daughter, between pride and possession, between public and private. And Ivanka's strained silence, her staged defenses, were the most painful expression of all, showing the price of being the most valuable asset in an empire built on chaos.